Hi everyone, today we're gonna talk about the SpectPro software. As explained in the previous tutorial, we can download the SpectPro software directly from the Petal platform. As you can see here, we just need to go on downloads and we can download the SpectPro software for both Windows and macOS operative systems. As I'm working with Windows 10, what I need to do is just to click on the Windows icon. And as you can see below, the SpectPro software will be automatically downloaded. It will take just a few seconds, and once the software has been downloaded, you just need to double click on it, and it will be installed in a few moments. To open the SpectPro software, we only need to use the same credentials we are using to have access to the Petal platform. By clicking on the login icon, we can see that we now have access to the SpectPro software. And here what is important to check is that here what is important to underline is that the SpectPro software can be used to visualize and treat not only the spectra that are included in the Petal platform, but also spectra that are in your computer on other database. If we want to open the spectra from the Petal platform, we just need to click on this icon that connects the SpectPro software directly to the Petal database. By clicking here, we can see that we can search for specific data by searching by sample or either by analysis. For instance, searching by analysis could be useful to observe and download the Raman spectra collected from a specific instrument. For example, I can select here that I want to observe all the Raman spectra that have been collected with the RLS ExoMath simulator. So what I need to do is to write RLS and search by analysis, and the SpectPro software will provide me with the complete list of spectra, including the Petal database, that have been performed with this specific instrument. Then by clicking on them, we can directly download them. Otherwise, we can perform a research by sample. In this case, what we need to do is to just write down the name of the sample we would like to investigate and click on search by sample, and the system will return automatically with all the spectra that are related with this terrestrial analog. In this case, we can see that we have one LIBS, one EIR, and one micromeg analysis, and we have different Raman spectra. So we can select the one to open, and by clicking here, we can directly download them to the SpectPro software. We can also open multiple spectra at the same time by repeating the same procedure. Once we download all the spectra we want to work with, we just need to close all these icons, and you can see that the spectra are now appearing in the main window of the SpectPro software. The main window of the SpectPro software is now divided in three different sections. On the left side, we have the different tools we can use to treat our spectra. At the center, we can observe our data, while on the right, we have additional information about our spectra. Starting from the right side, you can see that we have been downloading three different spectra. Here, we can check the different names of our data, and by clicking on each of them, we have access to their additional metadata. For example, we know the spectrum ID, the location of the spectra, the spectrum name, and additional information such as the wavelength position of the laser used to collect this data. In addition to that, by clicking on a specific data, we have access to different additional tools. For example, we can change the name of the spectra, we can change the color. As you can see here, we can put it black or any other color. We can also change the spectrum line thickness to make it more visible, and so on. See, the modifications we perform are directly displayed in the central area of the SpectPro window. Afterwards, what we can do is to use the spectral tools of the SpectPro to treat and better visualize our spectra. So first of all, we are going to remove some of this data to simplify the explanation. Okay, and so the first tool we can use is the magnifier tool. By clicking here, what we can do is to just zoom in and zoom out. We can select the area we can zoom manually, or either we can select from here. We can just write down, for example, that we want to zoom in the range that goes between 100 and 1000 centimeters minus 1. As you can see, at the center of the screen, the zoom is automatically actualized. Another thing we can do is to cut our spectrum. Here we just need to use this tool, and once again we can manually select the range we want to cut, or we can write down here the wavelength we want to keep for our data analysis. For example, from 100 to 2000. After cutting, we click again on adjust zoom, and the range is automatically actualized. We can also normalize the spectra. We just click on the N icon, and we can select different ways to normalize the spectra. So we can perform a normalization by area, by peak, or by analyzing the maximum and minimum values that are comprised within our spectrum. Now we'll just select by peak. I can also select if the normalization should be performed by taking into account the whole range or only according to the zoom view we have in the central window. I will select the whole range, and I will apply the normalization. And as you can see now, the maximum value of our spectrum is 1. We also have a baseline removal tool. This is very useful, for example, for infrared and Raman spectra. We have different ways to perform our baseline removal. We can either perform it automatically or manually. We generally perform it automatically, and as you can see, there are several parameters that we can use to optimize the baseline removal, and you just need to practice a bit with these tools. And one of the main characteristics of the SpectPro software is that you can actually select the baseline removal parameters and then apply those parameters and those kind of data treatment in batch to all the spectra that are open at this moment on the SpectPro software. But consider now we only have one spectra open, we select one by one, we click on next, and as you can see, the baseline removal has been correctly performed. Then we also have a labeling tool that we can use to write down, for example, the position of the main peaks. So we know that this peak is located at 201 centimeters minus 1. We can write it down, and then by clicking on the label, we can actually modify several parameters, for example, the font, the size of the letters, and the color. Okay. Then we also have a spectra shifting tool, which is particularly useful when we want to compare different spectra. In this case, what I will gonna do is just to duplicate this spectra. As you can see, we have two now, and I'm gonna change the color of the second spectrum. I want it red, and I'm also gonna change the thickness of the lines to make it similar to the black one. Okay, and then what we can do now is to select one of the spectra, click on the shifting tool, select the direction where we want to perform the shifting. In this case, I want to do it vertical, and by clicking here, we can select the amount and the degree of the shifting. And as you can see here, then we can perform a better comparison of the spectra. Finally, we also have a spectral calculator that we can use to perform several kind of calculations. For instance, we can send the first spectra to the operand 1, the second spectra to the operand 2, and we can sum the two spectra or perform the derivative, and the results are automatically displayed on the lower part of this section, and we can actually send the result of our calculation to a new plot of the SpectPro. So these are just a few tips on how to use the SpectPro software, but of course if you want to have more detailed information on how to use all the specific tools, we can download the manual of the SpectPro software, which will be released together with the Pedal platform.